Hey, Unfiltered Podcast. This is number 30. It's the 30th.
That's fun.
I'm 30.
Yeah,
This is the 30th podcast. Chris Steele is here.
Morning.
Morning. What's going on?
Ready for it.
Ready for it, man. We're just podcasting. Lindsay's on the right. That's where Isaac normally sits. He's not here. So,
right. Crazy. First time in front of the camera.
Say what up.
What's up?
Josh, say what up.
What's happening?
The man behind the screen over there.
No one knows how I look like.
Not yet, anyway.
Not yet. Soon.
Just a voice to the people out there right now. But Chris wouldn't wear any Hawkeye stuff, so we're just gonna have to deal with the fact that he's wearing a Cyclone hat
You be
on
quiet.
camera. But,
Enjoy it.
Go
Yep.
clones.
so sorry, viewers, for that. We're just gonna have to deal with it. But
I should have worn a shirt with it too.
I was going to say, I'm a little upset with myself now for not wearing an Iowa State sweatshirt, but it's fine.
you wouldn't be allowed on camera. No, I'm not that dictatory right here. Is that a Deal's Orchard shirt underneath?
It should be, but
It should be?
Yeah, I don't think it is.
You-
No.
It's most of your wardrobe.
It's a Rams, I think. Rams attire. Yeah.
There
There you go.
Yep.
School pride.
Right on. A lot of just your attire is like Deal's Orchard or school stuff or Iowa State stuff or
Yeah,
engineering
yeah.
stuff. Yeah,
It's fantastic.
that's it. What more do you need?
There's no decisions that need to be made if
No.
there's just school clothes and
Right.
business clothes. Yeah.
Right.
There you go. Decision made.
That's good. That's like Zuckerberg and all those guys do that, right? They just like wear the same thing over and over again.
One fewer decision in the morning, right?
Right. Is there
Yeah.
something to that?
Probably not. No.
I move into a capsule wardrobe. Have gotten like pretty far with that. So if you catch me wearing the same clothes all the time, that's why. But I really like it because all of my clothes match and I can literally put whatever top with whatever pant and move on with my day.
Now, did you say capsule?
Yeah.
What does that stand for something? Or what is that?
No, not necessary. I mean, you just have like different capsules for different times of the year. So like
interesting.
your summer capsule looks a little bit different than the winter capsule. So you'll switch out some tank tops for long sleeves or shorts for more pants.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Do you do that, Chris?
I was going to say, Phil, do you have a capsule for your
Kind of.
clothes?
Kind of.
I
for,
do not.
for work anyway.
Yeah.
There's like 6
You've
or
got like a
7
work uniform.
things. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'll just rotate that and that's it. I don't get too extravagant or flamboyant.
Right.
No.
I'm with you. Yep.
Same.
Keep it pretty
Yeah.
chill.
Is it
Lots
an
of
Iowa
neutrals.
State hoodie or a Deal's Orchard hoodie?
There
This
you
or
go.
that. Oh, so you basically do have a capsule
There you
wardrobe.
go.
Just
Right.
unintentionally.
Every once I'll put on the professional attire for down in Des Moines or for events
Yeah.
like that. But yeah, most of the time, if it can be a hat and a hoodie,
You're good.
You're
You're
in.
golden. Right. It's perfect. Well, you're versatile. You can do anything. You can literally do anything. You can be on a podcast. You can go coach soccer, which is that where are you coaching soccer? Or you're
I'm just a fan.
Just
For this
a
one
go.
after this. Yep,
Is it canceled today because it's raining?
it
or,
might be.
Right on. Got it. Well, feel free to check your phone anytime, when you get that text. Ever since this podcast started, you have been on like the dream list. You've been like the guy because you've been places. You've done things. And you're here now, which is crazy.
Well, before we started recording, I told you to set these expectations a lot
Yeah.
lower, right? You should not talk me up like this.
Like, no, thank you.
I'm flabbergasted that you don't. Well, you can do whatever you want, but you're not a podcaster. You don't listen to podcasts.
I have not gotten into podcasts mostly because when I listen to things, it's driving back and forth. Once a week at least, I'm back and forth in Des Moines, and most of the podcasts are shorter, and
Right.
so like for me, I want something that's going to go that whole drive and then some. So audiobooks, a lot of audiobooks.
What are you in right now?
Right now, I go back and forth between nonfiction and fiction.
Okay.
and
Same.
so yeah,
The
and so
back and forth is super helpful.
right? Yeah. Every once in a while, I'm on that grind. Like, let's self-improvement,
Right.
nonfiction. What can I do to be better? And then after a while, you get enough of that. And I'm like, all right, I
I've improved
need,
enough.
I'm a big Lord of the Rings guy. Like
Yeah.
I love that whole genre. And so got into the Wheel of Time series.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
Right on.
Yeah.
For sure.
interesting.
Did you see the poster?
I did.
over
Yeah.
there?
I like the Lord of the Rings one right there.
Like the movies, even too.
Oh yeah. Yep.
You watch movies.
I do watch movies.
Do watch movies. Is it like the top of the list? Lord of the Rings, Hobbit, or is there anything?
It's up there. Uh-huh.
What takes the top? Normally, this is a question for the end, but
This is a good question for right now.
Oh,
favorite
man.
movie of all time.
Favorite movie. I don't know if I can limit it to one.
Same.
Big fan of Shawshank Redemption. That's close to the top.
Absolutely.
Let's see, a couple baseball movies. Love Bull Durham. Love Field of Dreams. Got to have
man.
Field of Dreams as an
Yep.
Iowa guy.
Yep.
And then Lord of the Rings is right up there.
Right on.
Nice.
Have you seen The Count of Monte Cristo?
I have.
You have seen it.
It's a good one.
Because you knew Shawshank Redemption is modeled after The Count of Monte Cristo. Did
I
you know
don't
that?
think I knew that. No, I'm
Oh,
not.
okay.
I'm
Well,
not that
yeah.
well
It's pretty
read or
cool.
well versed, but I like both of them. So
Well, there you go. Yeah,
Funny.
that's virtually the same ish movie.
I see the point. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Right on.
It's good.
Well, I mean, we're here to figure out like who's Chris Steele. You know,
All right.
who is this guy?
I'm right there wondering the same thing.
Same. I think that often about myself. Who am I? Who am I really? You know. But what project are you working on right now?
What project? More definition to the question, because it's there's projects with the family business, projects in town. So yeah,
Exactly.
Yep.
There's projects in town.
projects in town.
Yeah.
We are finishing out. Well, construction's underway for 3 apartments above the Gravitate and what used to be Heartland Space.
Mhm.
So that is not quite to the halfway point of construction. Working with Amanda Bills, Addie Meyer on the old Ace Hardware building, so the
Nice.
public house project. And so we are down to needing kind of one final item from the SBA before we can kick off construction on that one. Apartments first, 6 apartments there. And then as soon as that gets done, immediately roll into the restaurant one. So and both of those concurrently going on in some way, shape, or form. One of them construction, one of them finalizing some of the paperwork. And then the middle school rehab project, that's the other big one that's going on in the background. And lots, that's still very much paperwork and the financing and all of that. So all the sources are there, and the vast majority of them are already allocated to that specific project. So everything moving in the right direction.
Are you an agent of an organization doing all of this sort of stuff, GCDC, or I know it's not Main Street. It's not like you're the mayor or anything. You're not on the city council
Not
right
yet.
now, you know, or is this just Chris Steele, kind of just public servant getting involved in making things happen?
Just kind of a random guy, and they're willing to let, and I shouldn't, this is not a singular thing by any means. And so one of several, but each of these projects, working with city, working with GCDC, and working with whether it's the tenants of the building, or in the case of the City View building, Jeff Woods, the owner operator of Gravitate, and he and I are kind of partnering on that one. And that's a big reason why he came out and opened up with that. So all of them have a slightly different set of people involved with it. But all of them, I've been the one, I guess, the one dumb enough to move into that position of trying to coordinate all the bits and pieces to make it come together and get it over the finish line.
Using your engineer degree and background, or not necessarily?
More of stubbornness than
Okay.
anything else. I mean, I think that's a Deal family trait is stubbornness, and sometimes we'll throw stupidity in there. And so the engineering piece helps simply because the engineering path I ended up taking was one that put me in the construction world. And so from that path, I knew architects, I knew how to do the engineering design. I knew developers, I knew people who could connect me with the lawyers and attorneys and everything that you need for doing some of these kind of the scale of projects that we're trying to do.
So you're connected. You're well connected at this point.
I am blessed to have
Yeah.
a weird, very diverse connection network of people. Yeah.
And you develop that through going to school and just through engineering and through all that stuff, or like
Kind of
I've
taken probably a unique path, combination of undergrad, and then I spent 3 years not doing engineering, and then eventually came back to Iowa, did engineering. And so all of those kind of various aspects of my life path have created this unique network of people that I know that I can call and pick their brains, I guess.
and that has helped move some of these projects forward, get some things crossed
Yes.
off the list. Yeah. What'd you do for 3 years not engineering?
I did a year in Uganda, with Rotary, and so spent as a Rotary ambassadorial scholar, and so got to. Technically, I was over there as a graduate student, and so studying renewable energy. But most people don't go to sub-Saharan Africa for the academic rigor, right? Great university, not to take away from them, but I went there for the experience and the ability to do some service work over there. And so spent a year in Uganda with that, and then 2 years in Kansas City with the Teach for America program. And so again, did a master's program with that, but again, the interest in kind of service and education's always been kind of something I was interested in. Engineering by no means was a predetermined path. It was more just kind of I wandered into it and never left. But I very, very nearly went an education path instead. And so it gave me that nice avenue to be able to go and try my hand at teaching and do it in a pretty challenging scenario as well.
Sure.
Really quick, can I just butt in here? I'm really curious. What motivates you with all these projects? Because that's a lot of work. Man. What? Were you going to get there? Oh, I stole your question. I'm sorry.
It's the setup. It's the setup, bro.
Okay, hold on. Okay, you'll
Back
see.
it up.
It's working because I'm getting excited. I want to know that.
Josh
answer.
went there. Okay, so
no,
Josh went there.
Hold on. Let's do the build up.
Nope, it's too late now.
No, my bad. My bad.
I was hoping you guys could tell me.
Too funny.
What motivates? I don't know. I think we go back. I wandered across my senior year of high school. Like we had I can't remember what the thing was in the newspaper, right? But every senior has an article written about them.
Oh, right, like the senior spotlight.
Right, the senior spotlight. And so even in that, I said that I'd like to do Peace Corps. And I was like, oh, well, I almost did Peace Corps. Like that, the Uganda thing was like a Peace Corps light. It's 10 months instead of 27. And I'm like, that sounds a little more doable.
Peace Corps light. That's funny.
And so there's always been an interest. I think I grew up with an awareness that what I had been handed in life was advantageous, right? I had a family that was very much a loving family. Wasn't necessarily easy, right? Owning your own business, being a part of a family business isn't an easy thing, but it was one where a lot of the challenges that people in this world face, I didn't have to face. And so like the idea of giving back, the idea of doing something that left a positive impact was always just kind of there. And even undergrad, like high school, like involved with things. Phil, I know you were too, right? We had these opportunities to participate in service learning, and you see kind of the impact of that. And so all of a sudden now we go to undergrad and similar to a greater degree and kind of all the impact of service and doing something that helps others. Like it's just always been there along the way. And so I had an opportunity to do something like that on a bigger scale afterward. And so it just it wasn't a purposeful thing. It was just always there, and it's always been able to grow. And now it got to the point where it's kind of like, why not do something like that? We get a finite amount of time here on planet Earth, and so let's do something with that time and in a way that hopefully makes it a little bit better than when we started.
Yeah. Josh, you got any other questions?
Well, this is what really fascinates me, because not everyone takes that. Take what you sometimes you find somebody that has advantages, let's just say, and they'll go a totally different direction. You didn't do that. You didn't just kind of take it and then use it up. You took it and took it to the next level. You continued the legacy. That's unique. I would say, like, what would you say is like was it the service learning aspect, actually having that connection with others and being able to contribute, and what, like, you know what I mean? Because like some people don't do that.
I don't know. I wish I could be more profound. I'm not very profound.
I don't know.
No, I just think it's always been something, and I was a part of a leadership program. We had a speaker once who said, like, when you at birth, you have certain characteristics that are set in you as a person. It's just kind of who you are and what drives you. And a lot of that, her belief was that it was more nature versus nurture.
Right.
Now, I don't know, like I haven't read into it. Like I haven't fact checked any of this, right? But like for me, the idea of doing something that's gonna leave a positive legacy behind has always been just maybe how I'm wired, right? Let's do something. If we're gonna do it, we're gonna do it well, and let's hopefully do it in a way that's gonna create a positive impact. And so I've been involved with enough things, enough programs, enough organizations, leadership activities, things like that, where that has been reinforced, that approach, that I think it's just become inherent to
your lifestyle.
Yeah, to how I want to try to
Right.
go through life. Now, certainly, like that's easy to say right here, and then to do it day in and day out. Goodness knows that, like there are days where I feel like I make a positive impact, and there are days where I feel like I'm spinning my wheels, and there's days where I feel like I just took a couple big steps backward. And so, like hopefully over the long term, and with all of the wonderful, amazing people that I've gotten to work with, and I mean people around this table certainly not excluded from that. We're blessed to have just a wonderful community, and I think there's a lot of people who want to do the same thing. So a lot of it's just I'm kind of along for the ride and get to be a part of it.
But essentially, that's your North Star, though. That's where you're aiming. That's what's guiding your path.
Yeah, you make it sound a lot more structured than I think it actually is. It was
Okay.
But I mean, you get up in the morning and it's kind of like it's not. Often it's not just a
One
conscious
step at a
decision.
time.
It's more
Yeah.
like, oh, I have 500 things that
Right.
Okay.
I told people I was going to
I
get
gotta
done.
get this done. 'cause I said I'd
I
do
got to
it.
get done. Otherwise, it's
Yeah.
going to be, I'm going to be either disappointed or disappointing someone else. And so,
Right.
like, no, let's get it done. And
Awesome.
there isn't that necessarily that much thought to it as much as, oh, we got to go.
You stretched too thin.
It's, probably.
Yeah.
There's a fine line, right? I mean, everybody says that you need to be busy to be more effective at things, right? If you don't have
Yeah.
enough to do, then
Then you
it's
do
human
nothing.
nature is that you're less efficient. And so finding that right balance. And if I err, it's usually on the side of having too many things. And so thankfully I have people around me who are willing to put up with me. And sometimes whether an email doesn't get responded to as quickly as I'd like it to, or whatever it might be. But yeah, there's enough on the plate.
What do you do for fun?
Fun.
How do you spell that?
Yeah. No. I'm lucky that I get to be around family a lot, right? And so that's family business. Like you're around family a lot, and we like each other, and so
That's good.
we're going to try to keep that. But whether it's working with wife or I mean, my kids are around. Like summertime, they're around. They're out there with us all the time, and that's a lot of the reason why I came back is just remembering that. And so, like, I think we all enjoy that, and there are times where it can be a lot, but it's also like there's a at the end of the day, there's something you can look back on and be like, oh, we did that. And that experience, that kind of that sense of accomplishment, for me, there's a level of gratification there. And so when there is free time or when we try to create free time and do something that's enjoyable, a lot of times it's going to be centered around what can we do with kids? What can we do to enjoy the fact that we've got 8-year-old, 6-year-old, 4-year-old,
Right.
and right they're there. They want to hang out with us. I've been told that doesn't necessarily continue all the way
Right.
through, right? And so let's enjoy that while we can.
That's good.
So it's not like I'm going to go sit on a boat and fish for 12 hours. It's not like you've got this burning hobby or habit that you want to.
Hobbies, habits, those are on the back burner. Used to do a lot of travel. Travel was fun.
Sure.
Yeah, someday again. Right now it's
Someday.
kind of,
Right.
it's kind of a big deal if we just get out of Greene County at this point or
Right.
out of Central
Right.
Iowa. But
I feel that with some little kids.
Mhm.
Yeah. It's
Yep.
a big ordeal. It's a lot of planning.
Right.
It's a lot of
Lots
packing.
of packing.
Lots of packing.
Snacks.
Yep.
Snacks.
Snacks, all that sort of stuff. Yep. I feel you there. Well, it's almost like the city of Jefferson is your hobby in a way, or like the community. Maybe the community is better. Like it's like you've made it your hobby. in a
It
way.
is. It is a bigger aspect of kind of my pie chart of where I spend my time
Right.
than maybe normal or than average. But like it's also one of those like that allows me to interact with so many great people. That allows me again to have that feeling of accomplishment, that desire. And part of it, like this is the community where my family business is. This is the community where my kids are going to grow up. And so why wouldn't I want to put time and effort into making it kind of as good of a community as possible? And there's so many others who are of that same mindset that it's fun just to go there and dream of what we could do and then to execute on that.
Unique. I mean, very unique. Like even the amount of people that are working towards building this community, I feel like is rare, unless
Right.
other communities have these little, cores of people that do the same thing. But
I think they probably do, but it's not as noticeable because other places are bigger.
is that what you think, or is this truly unique here?
I think we have something that's unique. I think that lots of communities have that. I think that there is a certain aspects to what it takes for a community to have success. And part of that is just the time and the economy and how things are moving on a macro scale. But when you get down to a micro level, I think that leadership is a big piece of that, and the cohesion of of those leaders. And so one of the things that I think is unique about Jefferson and our community is, one, we have several leaders who have been a part of this, continue to be a part of this. And so we look at kind of the generation before all of us,
Right.
the Peg Rainey's, the Sid Jones of the world. And I shouldn't start listing names because there's so many, and
Right.
goodness knows I'm going to miss one. So, and so apologies to those that I didn't just name, right? Because it's not, it's so many people,
Right.
but then we hand off and we've got another generation of people who are excited and motivated and want to do things. And so not only do we have leaders, and there are certainly are small communities that don't have that, and you can see that when you don't have the leadership or just people willing to roll up your sleeves and get to work, because a lot of times leadership is just that leading by example.
Right.
And then on top of that, we have people who are willing and understand that it's not always your pet project that needs to be the priority. And so it's kind of this: we don't get in each other's way. And that is more unique than I realized at first. And so going around or seeing some of these other communities in the state, talking with a lot of the state level leaders, like a lot of communities have that issue where people have their passions, their pet
Mhm.
projects, but they aren't as willing to be collaborative as we might be here in Jefferson. And I think that's what's allowed us to have some of the success we've seen over in the last few years.
Would you say that is a key component of success, is deciding what you want and then working backwards to figure out what will create that, and then going back another step to execute those
Mhm.
functions? Is that like the way? Is there any other way to get success besides blindly stumbling into it?
The irony here, because I've done this speech a few times, right? What do you want? All right, you work backwards. So you set that vision. And if you don't set the vision, then obviously you're just kind of wandering. And so you want to have a vision that you're working towards. Absolutely. And then you kind of work backwards and then figure out where you are today, and you step through kind of point A
Right.
to that final vision that you want to get to. And that makes it seem like it's really clear cut. And I would talk to the number of the college classes I'd go and present to and things like this, like, hey, here's this pathway, and it's kind of well established. And then I look back at my life, I'm like, well, that's not at all what I did. And so there's this kind of realization that have a vision, have a general idea where you want to go, but also don't have this tunnel vision that eliminates these
Right.
other opportunities. And so that was it was actually the Dr. Oh, I'm blanking on his name. He's the president at Northeast Iowa Community College. And gave a speech, and it was the idea of this willingness to take opportunities. And so I think that, like so many things in life, there's this moderation, right? You need to have a vision. You need to know where you want to go on a general level, and have your core values, priorities laid out. But then be willing to try these other opportunities, and the right mix is probably up to the individual. Like, does everybody need to go and spend a year in sub-Saharan Africa? I think it'd be cool.
Should they? Yeah, maybe
I
they should.
think there'd be some benefits there,
Right.
but that's not for everybody.
Sure.
Like for me, I didn't necessarily expect that,
Yeah.
but would I give that experience up? No. That has been a part of shaping my life.
Sure.
For 3 years after undergrad, not using my undergrad degree, or at least not in the traditional manner, that's taken these other opportunities, kind of following this winding path, but that's been a big part of making me who I am. And so I think that willingness to take opportunities that present themselves that there is no way you could know might present themselves is an important part of it. But don't lose those core values. Don't lose that long-term vision either.
It's not like you were a ninth grader and you set your vision and then it was like, oh, when I graduate from college, I'm going to Uganda. That's not what happened.
That is not. No.
An opportunity presented itself and you took it on the spot.
Yep.
And that was before wife and kids and all that. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Your flexibility changes as you go through your life.
Yes.
But and also your priorities, right? It's kind of the before you're married, right? You've got some additional freedom, but you also you probably don't have that sense of purpose either. And now add kids to the mix, and all of a sudden, that sense of purpose, that sense of responsibility, that ratchets up a magnitude level.
Yeah.
Your freedom, on one hand, might come back a little bit, or at least that we aren't traveling the world like we did before.
Right.
Maybe someday, but priorities are now very centric to kids and family and community, whereas undergrad it was traveling the world. It was focusing on what can we do, the save the world type of perspective, right? And so those things change as you go through your life, and a decade, 2 decades from now, kids are grown, graduated, that priority mix is probably going to shift a little bit as well, and that's kind of the fun part of life, I think.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You said a couple times along for the ride, which it reminds me so much of what people call flow state, where you have a vision, but and you're kind of rowing down this river, but you might not necessarily know that there's a rock underneath this area over here or whatever. So as you're going, instead of saying, I'm going to do the straight line, sometimes you got to beave and weave. I think that's bob and weave. There we go.
Bob
and weave. Thank you. Woo. Okay. But you got to bob and weave sometimes. And, do you think that's one of the aspects of your success? Because you have very much of an analytical mind in a sense, engineering background, but also not being so rigid either. It seems like, can you talk on that a little bit?
You said it well. I think that an acceptance that we don't have control over everything, and part of the audiobooks, right, and the nonfiction ones more than the ones with dragons in them. But the one of the themes that came across, and I can't remember what book it was, but focusing on locus of control, right? So there's all of these things that happen to you in this world, and you can get so worked up over all of them. But in reality, there's things you can change, there's things you can't change. And so at least on to me, an impact, a level with significant impact. And so tunneling in on your locus of control. And so what are things that you can change? You're floating down the river. You can't change if there's a rock there, but you can change how you react to that situation, what you do in order to address and adapt to work around it. And so that's the same thing in life. And so whether it's in career and whether it's in community projects, there's going to be things that you come across all the time that you can't control. And so how do you react to them? And a lot of times it is don't be surprised if there's a challenge. There will always be challenges. How do you react to it? And so identify it as an obstacle and work to get around that obstacle. And rarely are those obstacles true roadblocks. And this is, again, whether it's whatever the project might be, look at it as an obstacle, look at it as a challenge, and figure out what that solution is. And that's kind of engineering. Engineering's identified as an analytical thing, but at its core, it's just problem solving. And so that's the piece that I appreciate from kind of that undergrad perspective, is that, we had the physics and all that stuff, but a lot of that, especially some of those the classes later on, were far less structured, and it's more of the how do you solve a problem? And that's all this is we've got problems, we identify the problems, then we work towards solving them.
You ever seen the Mission Impossible movies?
Yeah, I'm not going to be able to quote much, or if you're going to go down that pathway.
No, I think you were describing. My brain woke up at some point in life. Okay, if that makes sense. And so this podcast is about trying to share some of those wake up moments, and you're crushing this right now, But what you're describing.
No,
Expectations are
bring
high.
them back down. Bring them back down.
Just that problem solving. It's like I'm watching the Mission Impossible movies, and they had an impact on me. And I admit I'm probably weirder than the average person. Where like movies, when I'm watching a movie, I am in that movie. Like it is happening to me. Like if someone's getting punched, I'm getting punched.
You are Tom Cruise.
It's kind of like
you
that.
beat me to it. Yeah, I see it. Uh-huh.
Yes, so but in the Mission Impossible movies, nothing can't be done. And it's amazing. And like what you just said is like most times those obstacles really aren't actually real roadblocks. You just have to problem solve and find your way around it. And watching those movies, it's like whatever you want, there's always a way. It's with infinite resources and time and energy like they have in the movies. It's like it can be done. But if in a real world, when things are mildly simpler than stopping nukes from bombing cities, like with our limited resources, you can find a way around if you just like workshop the problem.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like people, myself included, I've missed out on success because I quit, and I regret that later. And it's like I don't want anyone to ever have to feel that. You should feel it because there's learning and failure. Even though I feel like there's more learning with winning, and I will take that to my grave. I don't think you need to fail to learn. It's useful, but it's like
maybe a couple times in life,
yeah,
but not all the time.
There's a podcast right there, like the benefits of failure, and I've been
irrefutable. Benefits are there.
Right.
I just feel like there's also benefits to winning. So I want to just the goal is to win. Yeah, you're going to lose. Yeah, but that's neither here nor there. But I like that problem solving and not quitting, and I think that will land you somewhere that you want to be, especially when you've started with the vision and your core values and you know what you want to be about when you're here. Man, that's just having a couple of those things established in your mind as you get up day to day, I feel like makes life a little bit better, a little bit more.
I think, and a lot of what I do, what we all do, right, is that we want to have this impact. And so a lot of decision making is now like, how does this impact like my family, my kids, and everything? Right. And so one of the reasons we came back is that like I thought, and Tracy, my wife Tracy, had a similar childhood where we both grew up on farms. We both grew up with like a very, very close familiarity with what work was, hard work. And so overlaying all of this is that, that willingness to continue working, that willingness to be persistent, like some of that just learned from being on the farm, and you get up and there's a task you got to do. And especially like in our, we grow up and on the orchard, we have 10 acres of pumpkins. And when I was growing up, those 10 acres of pumpkins, we had a garden hoe. When we were out there, we were going back and forth and hoeing around the pumpkins to keep the weeds down. And like, that's something that doesn't get done in an hour. That's something that doesn't get done in a day. And so like to do that, and I remember vividly at the end of the day with me, my dad next to me, and we'd turn around and be like, hey, look, we just accomplished that. And there's this takeaway of hard work equals results. And I think that that's something that we get more often in a smaller community. And I'm biased, the smaller ag community where people grow up still having some of those opportunities. But coming back, like that's part of why we came back, is to give our kids that lifestyle where they could have that experience with work, knowing that that's a skill that translates extremely well, whether it's ag they go into or whether it's engineering, whether it's whatever. But if they have that willingness to work and put in the time and put in the effort, that they can, that's going to give them a leg up. And then if they can understand that there's going to be failures, and failures are a good thing because there's lessons to be learned there.
Yes.
That gives them that grit to keep going. And so that's what we're trying to teach. And goodness knows, we'll see how well we teach that in terms to our kids. But I think there's a lot of value in that approach to success later on in life.
Were you all in Des Moines, living there for a little while?
We lived in Ames for 5 years.
Yep. 5 years. And then, at some point you were in Ames thinking like, this is where we're going to stay. Like we're not coming, or was there always intention?
There was always an interest in coming back. Moved away and at various times, like when I went off to college, especially right afterward, had a chance I spent a summer in DC and spent, summers, I guess, all over the world, and like loved it. I have always appreciated coming back home though. And so it's never been something like, I can't wait to leave this place. And so there's always been that draw to come back, but there was that interest, that desire to go out and see things as well.
Amazing. How?
I actually do have a question. If
Okay,
that's okay,
Josh.
because I have to come back because failing. I think because I'm on the same page with you, Philip, but I'm on the same page with you, Chris. I'm on both pages at the same time.
I'm on that page.
I'm on the
too.
crease. I'm looking at
Philip
both
just
pages.
doesn't like
I
it.
just don't like it.
Well,
Everyone's like failure is so valuable, and it's like, well, winning is
I don't
too.
like it.
Like if all you do is fail and you never win, like that just is rough.
Yeah,
I'm,
that sucks.
I'm
Not
bad at
winning.
like. Don't get me wrong. I'm a hypocrite, right? Like I hate failing, and I don't want to. I don't want to. And so this is something. In part, I say it so I can remember it.
Mm.
But I do. I mean, you hear like the Silicon Valley stories, right? You need to go. You need to fail. You need to have like go bankrupt once in your life. I'm not advocating that, right?
What
To be
horrible
clear.
advice.
Yes,
Horrible advice.
to be clear, not advocating that level, but the idea that failure is okay. And when you look at kind of this sense of innovation that exists in some of these communities, right? A lot of times it's because there is this, they get rid of this fear of failure. Fear of failure will hold you up from doing things. And so as with that, like there's moderation, like find that right
Yes.
blend, but
Right.
don't
The happy medium.
stop yourself from doing something because you're afraid of failing. And that's kind of the key takeaway. And if you do fail, find the lessons in it.
Well, I was gonna that was going to be that was going to be my follow up question. So my follow up question is, do you have a best fail forward lesson that you can go, wow, that was if it didn't eliminate my fear of failure there, and I didn't just try, I wouldn't have gotten this lesson that then now I'm using as a tool in my life.
Yes, I can already. I'm picturing my answer in my head, and it's not going to be very. It's not going to be very succinct, and it's not going to be as structured, right? But if I yeah. So here we go. If I associate one period of life with failure, one of it is probably parenting, right? Parenting's hard. Like we try something and it doesn't work, and we try something else and it doesn't work, and you don't really know what's working and what's not. Like when the end goal is not like. Sometimes the end goal is just get your children to bed, right? But the end goal is like let's raise successful adults,
Right.
and so like that's let's set that one aside. But aside from the challenges inherent to that, I look at like 2 years in the Teach for America program and teaching in an inner city school in Kansas City. Like I go into that because I have the desire and to a small extent the belief that I can go in and improve lives by working as their teacher. And you do that, and you go through that program, and holy cow, is it a challenge? And inherent to that, and this is the life of any teacher, right? Is that it is impossible to be the end all be all for every single one of your students. Which for me, like I didn't stop to think through just the sheer the structure of that, right? I'm a high school math and science teacher, and I'm seeing 100 kids a day, right? And so you want to have that impact on everybody, but then you overlay the challenges of a region, a zip code where there's just a lot of socioeconomic struggles there. And so where is everybody at? Where are they? What are the challenges overlaying kind of each of my students' lives? And some of them I can connect with. Some of them, like, holy cow, amazing experiences. Some of them are just like not at a mental place where they're ready for that. And so, like, try as I may, like, you're that you can't be the end all be all for everybody. And that was really hard to go through. And that was probably more failure than I had ever had in my life. And so going through that, I think, was a good thing because one, it helped kind of open my eyes to some of the bigger the challenges in this world. It also helped me like callous myself a little bit to like, hey, I've been this, I've tried it. Some things work, some things worked great, some things did not work, some things really did not work, and there are some failures there. And so that personally gave me that willingness to talk about and to experience and say failure isn't necessarily a bad thing if you can learn from it. it's hard.
So then
It's very hard.
what pushes you past that fear of failure? What do you use as that booster?
The belief that
Good word.
I don't know. I didn't finish it though.
I think you could have put a cap on it.
Just belief.
Just conviction.
I don't know. I mean, I think it's that we want to, in the end, like we got to pick up and keep going, right? I mean, we're going to try something and like, let's look back and see, like, even though it's not that physical accomplishment, right? Of like growing up and saying like, hey, here's a clean field, but it's also this kind of this inner growth of, all right, that didn't work. And let's get up and let's try something else.
Right.
So not taking it too seriously. Just kind of going, hey, it is what it is. Let's keep going. Like it's more important to keep moving.
I think it's that. It's just that like, hey, there's still things that need to be done.
Right.
And
laying down and letting everything just happen is not an option.
Right. And to do that, like if you had, like we've all had some of those days where we're just like, and so at the end of the day, like you don't feel any better.
Right. But you did it.
Yeah. And so it's kind of like, all right, we got to keep going. And so I can't really answer that extremely well other than just.
I think you did a very great job with that. Yeah.
Thanks.
I think there's a lot of profound, me personally, just listening and taking in and learning. I think there's a lot of, this is not going to be a good word. I don't know if this is a real word. Profundity. I don't think that's a real word, but
love it.
Profoundness. Let's put it that way.
There you go.
To just simple answers. It doesn't have to be crazy, but what you're saying is just keep moving. Essentially don't take the failures too seriously. A win is you got up, you did your task, you did something positive. You have, anyway. So yeah, I love it. I'm taking a lot.
Steve Harvey has a little segment. It's like on the break of a Family Feud. And he's like talking to the audience, and it's this amazing speech about how you just have to take a leap. You just have to jump. And he talks about his jump is the word that he uses. And it's just like, you got to try basically, because like you can't just roll over and die all the time. You have to get up and you have to pick up and keep going, I think is what you said. And it's like, but the most important part is that you jumped. So even in failure, it's like, well, at least you took the chance.
Right. We tried.
You miss 100% of the shots you don't take.
Thank you, Michael Jordan. Yeah, let's keep coming
Michael
back to that. Yep.
Right, exactly. Keep the Michael Jordan train going. Yeah, we should just do another podcast entirely on reviewing the Last Dance. Huh?
I think I'd feel a lot more capable of that rather than these deep questions. Man. Although that might get really deep too.
It always gets deep when you're talking with Philip.
That is true.
This is true.
Yeah, I can believe that. Yeah,
it doesn't not happen.
I mean, it was the middle of Boost, and you're kind of sitting over on the side, like surveying things, and I'm like, I want to know what's going on in there. That was
a deep question, and you got a really shallow answer, I think. Yeah, kind of like I'm looking, I'm hiding, I don't know what it was. Like
I'm just taking
surviving.
Surviving, surviving and thriving.
Seeing what the next, what's the next thing we got to get done?
Right.
Yeah, it'll be us at Bell Tower, standing on the edge,
surveying. Right. Hopefully not running around with heads cut off.
Right.
Josh, I have 2 questions, if that's okay with you.
Sure.
You keep stealing all my questions, so I just want to make sure that you. That's what you're here for, bro. Josh has
I'm just fascinated.
Josh has a beautiful mind that's always seeking growth, always seeking learning. Josh wants to learn like no one I've ever met in my entire life.
Wow.
And it's like an obsession of his. So glad you're here.
I have very high. I already had high expectations, but even higher for you.
Oh no! Bring those expectations way down.
Okay, one
you guys
question.
keep saying to lower the expectations, but it's always going to be up here.
Yes, right.
Well, and just to kind of add, like, please don't forget your questions. Please remember your questions. But just to go off of what Lindsay just said, I think I had this thought that sometimes people they lower their expectations for themselves, and I don't know necessarily if that's a good thing. And I want to just kind of throw it out there. Maybe we'll revisit it later. But if you do raise your expectations a little bit, does that help you with looking at yourself and saying, well, I'm really not there. I got to get to work, versus, I have really low expectations for myself. If I wake up and I put on my pants I'm winning versus like, okay, putting on my pants, getting out, taking a shower, getting to the work, doing this, I'm not even close, but I did my best and I got there, and I'm not gonna, get down on myself for not getting to that expectation, but I'm still gonna hold that there. Does that ring true with, a motivating factor?
Yes, I think so. I think that our own self-confidence or self-belief is underlying all of this, right? And so if you're not willing to have the confidence that you can do something, then you're not going to try. And so, I think it all ties together, right? To be willing to try to do something, you got to have the belief that you can do it, right? And so, another one of the themes or kind of underlying beliefs I've got is this idea of like small wins, right? And so there's another great book, and I can't think of the book. You may know it, but like, especially when you're getting started. And I just used this example on like a community project. I don't remember which one it was, but like, hey, we got to get a couple small wins under our belts. And once you get that, and this can be personal too, right? Self-improvement, whatever it is, but show yourself you can get some positive momentum and a few small wins, and all of a sudden those lead to a few more small wins, and you start to create this momentum. And you can do that personally, you can do that in a group setting, a organizational setting, but whatever it takes to show yourself that you can do what you need to do. But if you don't have that kind of inner belief, then you got to step back and try to figure out how do you create that within yourself to believe that you can do something.
Well,
Start somewhere type of thing.
Yeah, it's also important to like surround yourself with people that push you to be better.
Right.
Philip and my husband, being two of those people, will not let me have small enough expectations for myself. Like
that's key.
They're pushers. They're like, you got this.
Yep.
we believe better for you. Like, keep going. Yeah, you and Tyler all the time are like, keep going. And it's great.
Yeah, well, you need that. Yeah, you need that. You need that support.
Right.
People that believe in you, see that higher expectation, hold you to it. Yeah. Okay, Philip, I'm not going to steal any more questions.
Hey,
I promise. I'm staying quiet over here. No, I want to hear your questions.
I want you to know that I appreciate you.
Oh, thanks, man.
We're on the same page, obviously.
Well, I'm just loving being here. So
great.
Thank you.
Yep. You ever read or listened to the book The Go Giver before?
No.
Which is it's a.
Did you say goat giver?
The Go Giver.
Go Giver.
Because
okay.
normally
great book.
Yes.
Goat?
See,
yes,
Josh,
great book.
Here we are again. Normally it's the Go Getter.
Okay.
But it's kind of a success / how to make connections book, but it's a focus on giving and being selfless, which is kind of what you've been describing the whole time that you've been here. You are the guy in the book, basically. But do you see yourself lower the expectations? Yep, understood. Do you see yourself as a creator or a innovator or a maintainer or a connector? Because a lot of what you do is just connecting XYZ to ABC over here and then making it all work.
I start most of my answers with or with
Me too. It's okay.
Sounds. Connector, yes. And then I think is just from what we talked about before, where this kind of varied network I've got. And so I'm lucky, blessed enough to know a lot of people in a lot of different worlds. And so being able to bring those together and bridge those. So, and I think some of that probably is innovation. Innovation is kind of a broad term, trying something new that hasn't been done before. And so I think there's a willingness to try new, a willingness to think outside the box and give various things a shot. But I've never necessarily called or identified it as innovation as much as just trying.
Sure. There's this thing that maybe you can find, Josh, but it's about like how there's only like 4 or 5 types of jobs. And it's kind of like a cascade. Like on one end is innovation, and it goes out. Do you know what I'm talking about?
No, but I can see where you're going.
Yep.
I like it. Yep.
Right on. And then all the way on the other end is like production, as if like there's types of people who, this is the exact thinkers, builders, improvers, and producers, which is any one of those 4 words, thinkers, builders, improvers, producers, ring true to, this is kind of where I fall into.
I think it depends on the day and the task, right? And just I mean, this week out at the family business, right? I mean, sometimes we're out there and we're literally picking the apples, right? So there's the producer side of it, because that's what
Mhm.
has to be done. And that's probably a small business thing, is you got to be a little bit of all these things.
Right.
I think we each can identify more maybe with certain ones, and so part of that is finding your sweet spot with it. Like, I enjoy the thinking and the building piece of it, but I also know that, like, to understand and to do those better, you have to live and do some on the producing and whatever. What's the third one?
I want to bring it back up. Improvers.
Improving, right? Yeah, I think you have to spend some time in all of those realms to make yourself better in any one of them. So yeah, it probably depends on what the task is, but the thinking and the building piece of it, I mean, those are, for me, those are the fun ones, right? Is like, what's the challenge and how do we create this unique solution? Like the engineering, the back to the problem solving. I mean, that's thinking and that's building. But then you got to get down and get your hands dirty and get to work a lot of times. And in a small business setting or in a community setting, a volunteer setting, like, there's only so many people. And so sometimes that means that you're going to swing a hammer, or sometimes that means that you're going to be out there with a garden hoe. And so it's just, how do you get something done?
Yeah. Wild.
Well, I'm really curious about someone, especially like you, that's working in so many areas, has to chip in a lot of areas that aren't necessarily your expertise type of thing. So how do you stay focused when you have, probably 20, 30 people calling you, texting you, emails coming back and forth, people seeing you, hey, I have a question for you, blah, 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 blah. How do you stay focused and be able to swing the hammer or send the email or, do what you got to do?
I'll preface by saying I am the world's worst multitasker, and my wife will second that. And so for me, a lot of it is, I find what my task is, and I've given up on the idea of multitasking for a while. That was kind of the buzz term, right? I've given up on my ability to do that, and now it's kind of, can I focus in on this one thing and move it along? Ideally, get that to a completion level for the task or the big idea, whatever it might be, and then go to that next one. And this is something where I'm working on getting better, because I also will be the first to admit that I have several of those emails or text messages that are still sitting there unresponded to. And that's where I'm blessed that I'm surrounded by some wonderful people. I'm lost without my wife. Anyone who knows Tracy knows that's absolutely the case.
She's great.
Yeah. I absolutely married up there. And so people in the community, at work, right? And so there is this teams that I've developed, or have developed that I'm a part of, and we've more or less kind of figured out a way that things are working. But that's probably a goal of mine, is to get caught up a little bit in terms of these various aspects, so there is a more proactive rather than reactive. And so when things get really busy, you move from that proactivity to reactivity, and you lose a little bit of the time to do the thinking and that higher level stuff, as you're just reacting and trying to get things over the finish line.
Awesome.
That was good. That was a good segment right there. That was good. Which speaks a little bit to my soul, because like the basis of chiropractic is about being proactive on your health and not waiting for things to break and then trying to restore it. So it's just that little piece right there. Just like, oh man, it spoke to me. Thank you. Appreciate it.
You are proactive. Good work. Uh-huh.
Right. Yep.
How much of time management it plays a pivotal role in your success over, let's just say, over your life, if you were to look back?
I don't think people would identify me as a great time manager.
Interesting.
More stubborn than anything.
Okay. So just
right?
like, no matter what, we're making this happen.
Like, cheers to the caffeine, right?
Tools.
I'm sorry there's not more down here right now.
I was gonna say, do we need to go get more?
Here. Yeah.
It's
a donation.
I've tried to be better at delegation. I have tried to figure out ways. I mean, I enjoy swinging the hammer, but I also know that sometimes that's something that can be more easily delegated. And obviously analogy of swinging a hammer, whether it's the completing an engineering design or whether it's, literally swinging a hammer on a project downtown. Those things I've worked on figuring out how to hand those off more effectively. so that then the time is spent on things that the skill set or the background. A lot of times I'm the only one who can do something for a project simply because I've been involved with it for so long and see the various pieces of it. So that's where I should spend my time. But like most people, I could use a lot more time to be able to do that. And so right now, sometimes that's just simply like it's going to be a few more hours at night where we're working on something, or we're shifting things around, or we're finding someone else to pinch hit on another thing that needs to get done. So we can keep kind of everything moving along with whatever deadline it is that we're working towards.
Well, whoever's listening, get in touch with Chris. Help him out. Get involved.
Has this become a plea for help?
A delegation team for you.
Thanks,
Just hey, do this, boom, boom, boom. Get more done.
That is just awesome. That's awesome.
How did your parents decide to put roots here? Is the deal family just like ingrained in Greene County, or?
My parents are third generation. Well, my dad's third generation deals, and so my great grandpa was the one who moved here back 1917.
Wow!
And so he was just a general farmer, kind of back in the day. Everyone did a little bit of everything. He really liked apples, and so he started planting out a few trees. And then my grandpa came and added to that. Probably the turning moment for our family business would have been 1940. So there was a historic freeze on November 11th, 1940. Didn't know we were going to get into history with this. So on Armistice Day, what is now Veterans Day, up until that point, it had been unseasonably warm. And then there was a huge storm that came through. Think like that December 15th storm that we had, only on a larger scale and warmer up to that point. And so the trees hadn't started the process of dormancy. And so sap and everything hadn't gone down. So literally trees were frozen solid, killed the trees. Up until that point, Iowa was a leading producer of apples, a leading producer of grapes for the nation. Great soil. We can grow those things pretty well here in Iowa. Most farmers at that point ripped out what they had and they did not replant. Because at that point, apples, it was about 10 years from planting a tree to getting production. And so that freeze, that was a bit of a turning point for the state in terms of ag production, because a lot of people came back with a one-year crop, corn or something like that. And that moved along the process of becoming more of a row crop dominant state. So back to an early comment of stubbornness and stupidity, right? That's a deal trait, right? So my great grandpa, great uncle, I've heard the story countless times. They were out there with a team of horses. They ripped out all the trees, and for whatever reason, they replanted. And so that was kind of the decision, like one of those major decisions for the family. Like, no, we're gonna do apples. Now, adding insult to injury, 1940 was the first year the family had a significant apple crop. And so great grandpa comes out in 1917, starts planting trees, takes a decade or so. So as you're planting through like the 20s into the 30s, like 1940, finally we've got 5,000 bushel, which is a good sized crop. I mean, we've had years here in the last 10 years where we didn't get 5,000 bushel from a variety of reasons. They get that, and then like after that first big crop, all the trees die, they get killed. And so like for them to decide that, like, no, we're going to do this and we're going to go after this, like that was a big thing. And so that's where it kind of moved us down that path of apples being a big part of the family business. And then my dad came back. They went off to Iowa State. It was 73 when he and my mom came back. My mom grew up in Jefferson as well. And so they went off to college, came back, and they came back right away, and they were a part of it. And so always knew they were going to be part of the family business. And so we grew up with that. Now my dad was very purposeful in saying that you guys do not need to come back, and in fact probably should not come back until you've gone out and tried something else. And then if you're willing to, or if he may have said this, if you're stupid enough to want to come back, which lo and behold, a couple of us are, then we can talk about it. And so here we are.
When you say replanted, sorry, Philip, I have to ask, are you talking about seed?
Nope.
Okay.
Nope.
So how does that work? Just
baby trees.
Baby trees. Okay. And those baby trees are coming from?
So here's Here's your fun fact for the day.
Okay.
Apples. So if you bite into an apple, you plant that seed.
Yeah.
Let's say it's a yellow delicious. That seed's not going to be a yellow delicious because they're cross-pollinated. Right? So to propagate apples, you actually take cuttings off of a tree and you will graft that to rootstock. And so the rootstock determines what the properties of the tree, the size of the tree, several of the characteristics of the tree. The cutting determines what the variety of apple is going to be.
Right.
And so trees, apple varieties, all start from a single tree, and then they're propagated off of that. And so, like, a lot of times you can find the original Red Delicious apple tree is actually from Iowa, a small town outside Winterset, Peru, Iowa.
Cool.
Yeah, there you go. Claim to fame.
Cool.
Shout
Yeah.
out Iowa.
Uh-huh.
So he had to graft those trees? Is that what he had to treat? Like, not all the trees died, essentially.
There were just a few summer varieties that
Okay.
made it through that, but we still have some trees that date back to the 1940s. Just a few.
So
Yep.
cool.
Yep.
That's cool.
So when we order trees, we purchase them from nurseries. They do the grafting.
Okay.
Now, my grandpa did some grafting. My great grandpa did quite a bit. And my brothers actually started doing a little bit of grafting for some pears. We've got a pear variety we really like, and we've had a hard time finding it. So
is that something that's been going on for, hundreds and hundreds of years? So there are places that they're just nursing these.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, so we put in an order. You choose the variety of apple, you choose the rootstock, and
Gotcha.
usually you can find what you're looking for.
Okay.
Nice.
Okay. Sorry, this is just fascinating to me.
Dude loves
Yeah.
to learn.
There you go.
Yeah. That's
Cool.
That's probably a whole nother podcast too. Just
Apples, the
apples.
physiology of apples.
How Deal's
We-
Orchard works.
We can go down that route.
Oh,
But yeah, there's a long winding road there too.
That's cool.
I had one other question to ask before we can kind of wrap it up and get you back to family
Soccer.
and your kids and soccer.
Soccer
Right.
time.
You're not overdue, are you? Are you late? No,
No, we're good.
we're good. My last question.
Yeah.
Saw on I think he was a basketball player. I don't actually know who he was, but he was giving a speech and he won an award for something. It was just a YouTube short. And he goes, "My grandfather walked to work. My dad drove a Buick. I'm driving a Lexus. My son's driving a Lamborghini. His grandson will be walking to work again." And his point being was that grandson that will be walking to work again after all these generations of building up success never saw the hard work ethic that had been put into the legacy that family built. And so that kid would be the one that squanders it. Have you seen that happen? Have you heard of that happening? Obviously, you are not going to go down that route because, like, you have a low level of success that you've achieved, and then you're like, you came back to Greene County. You could go anywhere. You could go to Uganda again to give your kids a hard work ethic type of childhood and mindset. Like, that's cool. I appreciate that, But do you fear generations down the road? Like, what could happen? Or is it?
There's always, heck, there's the fear that I'm the generation that screws it up, right? That's
Right.
my brother and I have talked about that, and so that gets back to are we willing? Like, do we play it safe? Do we be aggressive? And that's an ongoing conversation, and how we choose what we do, and how we will choose what we do for the business, and that fear is always going to be there, and how we deal with that's going to be kind of for us to figure out how we can try to grow this thing, but also not be the generation that screws it up. I've had the thought of like if we get it to a point where we can hand it off, and if our kids, whether it's one of mine or one of my brothers, or we have a third brother who, maybe one of his kids wants to come back, right? And that's kind of our purpose is, can we take this, can we grow it to a point where it could be handed off? And then likewise, like the conversation I had with my dad, if they're dumb enough to want to come back and to do this, right? But no, if they want to, then it's kind of on them. And I hope that they don't have, if there's any way I can convey to them that, like, if they take it and they try something and it doesn't work, I'm okay with that. I get it, right? I've been in there, and I want them to have that freedom and not to have the fear of doing something that might not turn out well, and to know that that's okay. Can we get it so if failure is from trying too much, I'm okay with it. If failure is from like the Lamborghini to walking to work example, part of it, it's out of my control, right? So what are things, or some of that's out of my control. Are the things that I can do to help with that? I mean, part of that's probably the lessons, right? And so you have that example, and then you have multi-generational businesses that have been successful through that. And so what are those things, and how do you teach that, and what can you do to avoid that example? Oh, I don't have all those answers, but that's something that I hope as we go through and we continue to have success and we continue to make mistakes and have failures, that we can learn and hopefully create something of a transitional playbook that gives the next generation and the generation after that, if there is such a thing, the greatest chance for success.
And part of this is theoretical, right? It's like, we don't know. Or
Right.
I feel like everything I just said in this podcast was very theoretical. So.
Which I honestly really appreciate, because like not often are things just purely black and white. You know, a lot of things exist in this kind of gray area where it's trial and error, and you see if this worked, and well, it worked for this person over here, and I did this exactly the same and it didn't work for me. And so then, but I had to tweak it and then it worked. It's like, that's your unique story and path. It's my unique story and path. Everyone has a unique story and path, you know? So how can you definitively say, yes, this will work for everyone? Is there anything that does work that way?
This is a thought, a theme I have had frequently here, is that like people want to live in a world of absolutes. People want a world where it's easy to understand, and we don't live in a world of absolutes. We don't live in a world where it's easy to understand things, right? And so that can either be extremely frustrating, or that can be the beauty of kind of the world that we're in, is that like, yeah, it's gray. Everything is gray, and you got to have those certain kind of guiding posts, right? Mm-hmm. And so, and for different people, that's different things, right? So like for us, it's family, it's faith and things like that are there, and you hold on to those pieces. But even if you don't have a good head on your shoulders, if you're not willing to think for yourself, I mean, even some of those things can be misconstrued, right? And so part of that is just a willingness to be conscious to what it is you're doing and how it impacts others. And so you're right. I agree. Like it's very, I think it's impossible to boil things down into black and white. I think there's always going to be some level of gray. And how do you create a structure for yourself to go through life so that you can understand, embrace that, but also not use it as an excuse for losing your way, right? I mean, and it's really hard to do. Mm-hmm. I mean, because it's just hard to create this scenario where if you say something absolute, that it holds up in every situation in a way that doesn't get misconstrued. So without getting into finite examples, right? It's kind of, I'm rambling, but as you play these things out, like that's part of life. And that's like, you can either get frustrated by it, or you can accept it, embrace it, and then try to come up with a path to go forward and to be happy.
The tagline of this podcast is revealing tactics to meet life's demands. And I feel like you've done that very well.
You revealed the tactic.
This is like the storybook, episode for the entire podcast. It's good. So expectations.
Yeah, ratchet that back down. Uh-huh.
This has been an extremely enjoyable conversation. For me anyway, speak for myself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Well, thanks for having me.
For sure. Yes. I will look forward to a day we can do it again, both in front of mics and in the corner of a room at a big event where we're just analyzing what's going on.
We'll have a hard cider. How about a bell tower? Maybe not a bell tower. You're going to have a few things going on then, but
maybe we'll squeeze one in at bell tower.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. We'll find a way. Find a way. No more questions.
No more
questions. Outro us. Absolutely. Episode 30. Got anything else to say?
Not really.
Not really.
This is fun.
It's good.
Thanks much.
Thanks. Appreciate you. It's been real. Chris Steele.
Cheers.
Do it again.
He's Philip.
She's Lindsay. That was Josh.
This is Chris.
This was Chris Steele.
Thanks all.
Adios. Till next time.